The Human Rights Foundation has condemned the actions of police officers who wore the same identification number during a crackdown on protesters in Auckland yesterday. 3 people were arrested as the police and security guards removed tents from Aotea Square. The police say 3 constables are now being investigated for wearing matching ID numbers, which is against police policy. Both the police and the police minister have refused to be interviewed on Checkpoint this evening. The Human Rights Foundation chairperson, Tim McBride, joins us now. Good evening.
Good evening, Susie.
What reason can you think of for the police acting in this manner?
I find it really bizarre. If the allegations are indeed substantiated, it's just bizarre, very troubling behaviour.
You think ultimately the officers involved were trying to conceal their identity?
Well, again, if the allegations are substantiated, you've got to think, why would they do it? I thought this was one of those issues that had gone away, that had been well and truly resolved after the Springbok tour. There was so much outrage at that time that police officers couldn't be identified. I really thought this was an issue, one of those issues with the police that had been well and truly sorted out.
It's certainly something that overseas has happened. Certainly police in the UK at various demonstrations, including for the G8, have been known to either hide or wear similar numbers, the same numbers. Also, in some of the Occupy protests in the States, police have been accused of doing exactly this.
Well, indeed, and we've got to keep in mind that the police in New Zealand and the other countries you've just mentioned, they have immense coercive powers, powers to search, powers to arrest, detain, seize items, etc. And this was pretty evident during the eviction of some of the remaining occupiers from Aotea Square. And obviously, coming from my point of view, or from a human rights perspective, we're very concerned with police officers and others with coercive powers being properly accountable.
Do you think
if you cannot identify someone, you can't make a complaint. It's no good saying Officer X, and then you say, but who was that Officer X? Have you got their number or whatever? If you've not got that essential identifying information, you can't get to first base.
Do you think it's likely that any of the officers involved may have some sympathy with the Occupy movement, or perhaps are not wanting to get involved in what they see as a council fight?
I wouldn't want to speculate. I hadn't thought of that as an angle, but I guess it's possible. It's just really odd. I'm waiting with bated breath to hear how the Commissioner tries to explain it.
What do you think there should be now? An inquiry into what's going on?
Well, I understand that the police may have already conceded that at least 2 officers had the same number. That's a report I heard earlier today. It needs an investigation, and these days people really look for an independent investigation. We've got the Independent Police Conduct Authority, and maybe this is something that they should look at. It doesn't, as I understand it, readily come within their brief, at least in terms of an initial investigation, but people are going to want this cleaned up, and pretty quickly.
So who do you think would be the best person to look into this? The police themselves? Well,
I've always, along with many others, had a real concern about the police investigating their own members. I mean, the Chief Ombudsman did a good job post the Springbok tour, and he certainly caned the police for some of the way in which they went about aspects of their procedures, including, as I remember it, the issue of identification. Look, I wrote a paper on this topic 30 years ago in 1982, and I thought it had all gone away.
So you were shocked when you heard what had happened?
Well, I just couldn't believe it. I thought, this is really, whatever, history repeating itself. And in particular circumstances, I just can't. I'm baffled.
Human Rights Foundation chairperson Tim McBride, thank you very much for joining us this evening.